Hi guys, today's video is about our trip to the Supreme Court this summer. So if you want to know more, stay tuned. Okay, you may not know, but I love legal stuff. And it's a passion that's come about out of necessity because I've had to do a lot of advocacy for my kids with special education law. And so I've had to learn state and federal law. And I've had to know it well, so when I go into meetings and people tell me, oh, we don't have to do that, I know that they do. So it's become a real passion of mine. And the particular justices that are in place right now, including Kennedy and Gingrich, recently, within the past 18 months, ruled on a special ed case that changed, hopefully, in theory, special ed for children all over the United States. It used to be that the standard for what constituted as progress was here. They really didn't have to show that they had done much in order to show that they had been provided an appropriate education. And the current justices raised that bar, which was a huge deal. And as much as I would have loved to have been at the Supreme Court when all of that went down, I didn't have the opportunity. But I was in Washington, D.C. this summer with our family. We saw the night before that the justices were doing a public session announcing several rulings. And so we hauled our butts across town in the morning. We had to get up, get dressed, get breakfast, take two different trains to get there, and then walk to get to the Supreme Court by 9:30. And so here's the story about what happened. So we did all of that. We decided the night before to go. We were just going to go on a tour there, but then we saw they were having this public session. So we decided the night before to go, so we got up, hauled, clear across town in the busy trains while everybody's trying to get to work, all that good stuff. And we have to walk, the Supreme Court sits behind the Capitol, and we had to walk kind of uphill to get to the Supreme Court. Well, I'm not in the greatest of shape, and it was hot, and I'd been running all to get there. So I'm sure by the time we got to the steps of the Supreme Court, I looked absolutely lovely. But as we walked up, all these news outlets were there, and we didn't know why, and nobody would tell us. It's a big secret, whatever they're announcing as far as the rulings, and so we had no idea what we were walking into, but we were going to try to get into this public session. And I thought, oh, we're not going to get in because there's all these reporters here and something big is going down. But I thought I would try anyways. So I had gotten very used to asking people for help, which horrified my children. But when you're in a city that you don't know, you either ask for help or you're lost. So there was two police officers standing on the steps of the Supreme Court. And so I walked up to them looking as lovely as always, a hot, sweaty mess. And I said, do you know where we go to line up to go into the Supreme Court? And the police officer looked at me and he said, well, are you wanting to be there for just a few minutes, or are you wanting to be there for the whole session? And yes, you have the option to do both. And I said, I want to be there for the whole session. How long is that? And he said, for this kind of thing, it's typically a half an hour. It ended up being an hour, which was awesome. Anyways, so I said, we want to be there for the whole session. And he pulled 4 tickets out of his pocket and gave them to us. Sorry to get emotional about that. But you have to realize, I love legal stuff. We're at the Supreme Court of the United States on a huge day, and I have a police officer handing me 4 tickets. I don't have to wait in a line. I don't have to risk not getting in. I don't have to do any of that anymore. I have 4 tickets to get in there. And we went and we got right in. I mean, granted, we had to go through several security points and pass several things and put all of our things in a locker. The only thing they will allow you to take in is pencil and paper. And so, we had to do all those things and go through all of that. But we got to go into the Supreme Court, and we were on the very back row. And it wasn't it was a very tall room, very tall. maybe 2 or 3 stories tall, with big Roman pillars, and they have the justices all up at the front, and they have curtains, and each of their assistants would come out from the curtain wherever their seat was, and put down their cup of coffee or their briefing that they were going to read or whatever. And so we were on the very back row, and it was full. The courtroom was full, and it was just fascinating. And so they came out, and it was really funny. There was a lady that strikes the gavel, and that's her job. And you stand up, you're like, whoa, and you stand up, and then they tell you to sit down, and you sit down, and they have marshals in the audience that are facing the audience. And I'm sure they were armed. But they scanned the audience the entire time. And there was this kid in front of us that he couldn't really see. He was shorter, and he was trying to get up to see. And the marshals had to tell his dad or whoever he was with that he needed to sit down. That's how closely they were watching what you were doing. And so the justices came out, and they read the first ruling, which was a California medical ruling thing. And then they read the dissenting argument, which was really interesting to hear, because when they read the ruling, I can't remember who read it, they were kind of monotone in reading it. And they read the whole actual ruling, and they were pretty monotone in reading it. And then Justice Kennedy did he read the dissenting argument, and he was very animated and much more entertaining to listen to. Then they did there were 4 rulings that they were supposed to do. It took them an hour to do 2 of them, so they had to do more the next day. But so the second ruling was the Trump travel ban. So I'm sitting in there listening to this initial lingo, and all of a sudden I hear the word Trump, and I'm like, holy crap. And so they read the whole travel ban thing, and then Sotomayor, I believe, read the dissenting argument, and it was fascinating to listen to them. And you think you have an opinion on something, but I have since learned, listen to the dissenting argument, because that's where they pick apart the decision, and they actually can make some pretty good points. And so my daughter asked, this isn't meant to be a political video, and I don't really want to state my opinion on any of it, but my daughter did ask me afterwards, how would I have, knowing the information that was given, which did I think was right? And I couldn't tell her. I couldn't tell her, because both were so compelling on how they did that. And it was funny to see the justices, their chairs they turn, and they can kind of lean back in them. And so Justice Thomas and Kennedy and probably another one leaned back a lot and would just sit back and listen. I wondered sometimes if they were taking a nap. And speaking of naps, Gingrich had her head down most of the time, and I didn't realize who she was. I should have studied the justices closer, but I hadn't. And I said to my husband, who is the old lady that is sleeping through the whole thing? And it was Gingrich. And so I don't know if she was sleeping or not, but she could have been. So it was just fascinating to hear that. And then the ladies slammed the gavel again, and we all got up and they left. And what a thrill that was, with all of the stuff that goes down in our country, to see the process at work, and to see those particular justices who, I may not agree with them on everything, but they did something amazing for the special education population in this country. And so I was so thrilled to be there. And so then after that, we went, and they had a movie. They had a movie that you could watch, where I learned some things about the Supreme Court. And if you don't know, I think they said that they only have each side only has 30 minutes to present their argument. They actually present their argument in writing ahead of time, and then the justices spend about 30 minutes asking them questions. They've already read the argument, they asked them questions, and then it talked about the whole process of how they come to a decision, and how, sometimes there's a bad day at the Supreme Court because the dissenting arguments, they can write whatever they want. It doesn't have to be as formal. And so sometimes, they might get a personal dig in on someone or something, but it was really, really interesting and really educational. And if you ask my family what their favorite thing was about Washington, D.C., there were several things, but my favorite thing was the Supreme Court. And my husband and my daughter would agree with that. My other daughter liked the Shake Shack and their cheesy fries, but she's young. So, and she was snoring during the Supreme Court. Literally, she started snoring. So, anyways, I just wanted to share that with you. There are some amazing things out there that, once in a lifetime kind of things. And I'm so glad that we went. And it was such a powerful experience. And, I just hope that if you get to go somewhere where you can show your kids whatever it is, a historical thing, whatever it is, that you'll take the time and do that, because those are the things that they'll remember. I went to DC as a kid, and I remember the White House. I remember going to some plantations, and I remember seeing the Star-Spangled Banner flag. And this trip, I got to see that same Star-Spangled Banner flag with my youngest, who was the age that I was when I went to DC as a kid. That was pretty cool. And my kids hopefully will remember, like it or not, things like the Supreme Court. So that was a neat experience. I just wanted to share it with you. I hope that all is well with you. Would love to know if you've ever had any really cool experiences like that too. And until next time, make it a great day. Thanks. Bye.